Welcome. My name is Marc Anthony Neal, and I have the honor and pleasure of introducing Toshi Reagon. Really, someone who has done incredible work, an exemplar of what we would call American music, given the range of genres in which she has expressed herself musically in. Also, an activist, and most notably these days, for the creator of the opera, Parable of the Sower. I'd like to introduce to you now, Toshi Reagon.
Hey.
Hey, what's up, Toshi? How are you doing?
I'm very good. Really, really excited to talk to you.
So I would imagine this is an interesting moment for you because there's a way in which your work has always been political. And if anything, the times have had to catch up to the work that you've been doing. So now that you and the times are in the same place, um, how's your experience been doing the kind of music that you do, and how receptive have audiences been in this moment, even in this COVID dynamic?
Yeah, I mean, I think the last show I did in front of people was our opera Octavia Butler's Parable of the Sower, and it was right on the cusp of
Yeah.
when things started the next week everything started shutting down, and we were at UCLA presented by Cap, and it's an 1,800 seat hall, and the day before they were like we offered everybody to take their tickets back if they wanted to.
Hmm.
We still weren't in the like don't touch people. We had just started to be like don't shake hands,
Right.
and but we weren't like stay 6 feet apart yet. So it was really we didn't know if people would show up. Like we didn't know what was going to happen, and only three people asked for their money back, and a few people like showed up, didn't show up, so yeah, a few, very few, but mostly like 1,800 people were up in the room. So I think, I'm an artist, and so I get to say things I think out loud, but I think people are so ready to have these conversations and be met, and to have their voices be represented, through art, through media. So they're going towards the people who are speaking the messages they want to hear.
That's fantastic to hear. How is quarantine, having to not be able to have that connection, to audiences or even connections to musicians, on stage? How has that been for you over the last 6 months or so?
Oh my God. I miss I play with a lot of people. Like I have a
Hmm.
big circle of friends, and everybody is doing something. Like people are percolating, every way they can. I didn't rush to like try to figure out how to have an online, concert or something like that. I was a little bit like I'm in New York, and so in New York we had the most cases, and
Hmm.
New York City shut down hard, like
Hmm.
hard, where you couldn't hear cars and birds took over and everything. So I kind of sat in that and was like, oh my God, like I don't know if I'll ever experience that again. And it just overwhelmed me, the power of it. And what it showed to me was how powerful we are when we decide to do things together, and how much change we can make instantly.
Yeah.
So that was a moment. I just received that moment. But yeah, I'm ready to, go and play a show somewhere. Um, I'm figuring it out, do the best. It's hard, but it's hard for everybody. So whatever job you have is difficult times.
Right.
Yeah.
We're talking today a little bit about the kind of history of protest music, in particular Black protest music. When Aubrey Ahmaud was killed, um, you know, we were in a fragile state, but it wasn't quite that moment. Breonna Taylor gets killed right as everyone's going into quarantine, and of course, everyone is literally locked at home. When were forced to watch what happened to George Floyd. As you were thinking about the catalog of music that you created, and more importantly, the catalog of music that you've grown up in, right, in terms of a Black protest tradition and thinking about civil rights anthems, musically, what were your first thoughts, watching all of this play out on the screen?
I don't, I've written a bunch of songs through this whole area, and I think the most powerful thing was like I just wanted to meet the moment that was happening. And I think like a lot of people have said to me like, people are not singing like the people sang during the civil rights movement and I kind of been telling people that protest is about the contemporary voice. It's about the contemporary voice. So during the civil
Hmm.
rights movement, the contemporary voice was from the South, and it was from Black Southern people, mostly with church traditions of singing. In my family, everybody sang. On both sides of my family, a bunch of singers. People sang everything. They sang games. They sang prayers. They sang in church. They wrote songs. They had little groups like so. That is a huge singing culture and people kind of now look back and go, we like the whole country did that. And I'm like, no, that is a Southern freedom movement activation that the
Uh-huh.
country learned, like the country learned that. And so it's become a part of American legacy because it instituted the first nonviolent, you know, demonstration of systemic change. And this current era is something else. This current era operates on multiple platforms. It
Hmm.
does have a sonic platform. I mean, people get out in the street. I have never heard so many different chants in my life. Like I watched I watched a group of like, I would say teenagers, but maybe teens, early 20s, do a rehearsal for chants before a protest movement. And these were not simple chants. Like these chants were like I was like, I don't know if I could, it was so fire. Like it was amazing. The visual things that are happening now, how fast something can get from the ground onto
Hmm.
screens, into
Hmm.
people's hands, how wide the movement can go, the relentlessness of the movement. Black National Convention is one of the best things I've ever seen, and it comes out of that protest movement for Black lives. Everybody should watch the Black National Convention. It was the best convention in August. So I think we're looking for something that really reminds us of this, this glorious movement. But we also need to accept what we have. And I have just started to see people integrate now some of the songs from the past, change the name, change everything, make it mean something today. You see it happen. It's a big evolution, but don't be crying for what used to be and just focus on what is.
Yeah. And I think that's an important aspect of thinking about this musical protest tradition, because a lot of the back in the day anthems that we think of were actually songs that were repurposed, right, for
Exactly.
that particular moment, right?
Exactly.
Remix,
They
if
old
you
songs.
will.
We shall overcome is old song. I'll overcome.
Right.
My godfather changed it to we shall. It's I'll overcome, So a lot of those songs are traditional. The beautiful thing is people can take what they need and make it be relevant. I've also heard the song my mother wrote for Ella Baker a lot. Will you believe
Hmm.
in freedom?
Freedom. Yep.
Ella's song. People, I've heard it everywhere. So it's really cool. This generation, I feel, has a really incredible understanding of who they are, where they come from, and where they're going. I mean, it's
Yeah.
very exciting to me.
It's fascinating, right? Because when you think about earlier generations, right, these are songs that are being passed down amongst, workers groups, labor unions,
Yeah,
churches. The kids now can just go to YouTube
yeah,
and track down this incredible archive to pull this music into the future.
yeah. No, it's something else. Like yeah, it's amazing. A lot of things are waiting for you to use them. Like they're waiting for you to take them and do what you need to do. And
Yeah.
and it is really good. It's really beautiful.
So, speaking of an archive, right? You just dropped an idea there, but didn't drop a name. Talk to the audience a little bit about who your godfather was in terms of Pete Seeger.
Oh, yeah. My godfather is Pete Seeger, and I'm named after Toshi Seeger. And That's a pretty powerful collaborative couple right there. And I think that's like, even, to my point, is Pete was the person who, was a songwriter or a song repurposer, would get
Mhm.
songs from anywhere and put them in front of an audience and teach people these songs. Toshi Seeger is the person that got Pete on the road everywhere, and Toshi Seeger is the one that got the Freedom Singers. The Freedom Singers wanted to travel, but to like really, and you have to remember that that's my mom and my dad and Charles Neblett, and the Freedom Singers. Really, like, they were young. They're like 19 to 21, maybe not even 21, because my mom had me when she was 21, so she was not doing that. 18, 19, and they wanted to go on the road and sing the freedom songs and bring the awareness to people all over the country. Our first group to do that. Toshi Seeger and my mom kept collaborated. Like, Toshi would be like, they would be someplace, and my mom would call Toshi. It's like, if y'all can get to this place tomorrow, they're gonna present you and host you, and that's how they got all around the country. Like, it's crazy. So you needed, yeah, you need the music, but you need somebody with the vision and the power and the thoughtfulness to figure out how it can get where it needs to go. Organizers, just as important.
Yeah. It's amazing, right? Because it's a chicken and the egg question. And you mentioned it earlier, right? You in this moment were trying to write songs to meet the moment. And I think sometimes artists, feel the pressure, particularly from their fans and audiences, right? They, somebody wants, Lil Wayne, as an example, to write a protest song. And, the sense of where we are, or Drake, as for a more, present example. But it's so much more of an organic process, right? Folks don't normally go in and decide, "Ooh, I'm gonna write a protest." I mean, Nina Simone did with Mississippi Goddamn, right?
Yeah,
But typically that's not the model, right? It's something that's much more organic, and sometimes we find that folks will repurpose songs that actually don't have anything to do with political movement, right? You think
yeah,
about the way that folks would spell out Aretha's Respect, right? And
yeah.
she's speaking about her bad man, right? But it was repurposed in the moment, right, to be this national call for respect amongst Black folks.
That's right. I mean, look, people started using "you about to lose your job," like, like, people started to use that. Like, what you gonna do? Like, I mean, look, we all want our favorite people, right? That we see bigger than us to represent our voices, because our relationship to them is that they're representative of something we like and we need. It doesn't matter who they are. Like, we want, oh, can Drake
Right,
do something?
right.
And but all of the, significant information that would fuel that always comes from the people. It always comes from the streets. It always comes from when the people declare no more. That's
Right,
when everybody
right,
goes, oh, they saying no more. And that's when it starts to build.
right.
Everybody just has to accept the fact that they are incredible, that they know what they want, that they know when something is right and they know when something is wrong, and use their voices to start that fire. And, the rest of the world will catch up to it. And then there's some people who just that's not what they want to do. You know, Toni Morrison, I went to hear Toni Morrison speak one time, and she said, I wasn't on the street doing marching like a lot of people, but as an editor, I thought this could be my contribution. And so she got all of these books written by all of these people, who we may not ever have heard from if not for her. So, the way that people can contribute to movements, we need everything, and we need the purpose to be strong. We need people to not be trying to like increase their visibility for their pocket. We need the
Real
message to
talk,
be
real
strong.
talk.
Real talk. Like, don't come out here with a protest song you know, and you just not really about it. But for the most part, I think people have been very sincere and very outraged by this time, because this is, in my lifetime, this is the worst time. This because we have the worst, we have a murderous administration. So this has been the worst time when we see government attacking people and using the virus literally as a machine to murder, then we are in terrible times.
Yeah, and I mean, in some ways, it's even more unfathomable than what we expected it would be back in 16, right? Because we couldn't have predicted a pandemic, right, in that moment.
Well, you mentioned in New York, we know Trump, so it's no surprises to me. I was like, yeah, he don't like nobody. Like, he's not a Republican, he's not a Democrat, he don't like nobody, and you don't know nothing. Like,
he a Trump, right? He a Trump.
He
right?
Trump. That's it. Right. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier how there's so many different platforms now, right? We've seen young folks really move towards the visual, whether it's Instagram or TikTok or, whatever they're using. Do you think that music plays the same seminal role, right? And this is not even talking about genres of music, right? But do you think music plays the same seminal role that it played 50 years ago, right? Because as you think about the freedom singers, right, the folks who are out there marching in the streets, you still had the Curtis Mayfields and the Sam Cookes and Nina Simone's and all these folks, who were both committed to making music and in some cases were on the front lines themselves. Does music feel the same way to us in this moment, as we're looking for, even motivation, right, to continue to struggle?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about that. How do you measure it? Like, I have no idea, what that feels like. But the artist that you brought up is really interesting. You brought up the artists that really grew up in such strong musical cultures. Those people are going to be musicians no matter what, like Sam Cooke, was a gospel quartet singer before he, became R&B. And you can go back even further to Sister Rosetta Tharpe. Like, these are people that were going to be musicians. Like, they're, Curtis Mayfield is one of the most brilliant artists of our entire existence. Like, these people are going to do what they were going to do. And I think Curtis and Nina, I think that they really already had an authentic line. And that's not to say Sam Cooke's line isn't authentic, but they were both really, really good at having a conversation and a communication about their people simultaneously while being commercial artists. And they put it inside of everything that they did. They made really particular choices about, Nina made really particular choices about songs she would cover. When she had to say something, she would figure out how to get it written. These are certain things. It's not that it's completely different. It's just that we can't really answer that question. I think I remember when my mom started to have like Harry Belafonte and Miriam Makeba's records in our house. And I remember she played like Howlin' Wolf, and she played like Pharoah Sanders and all of these like different kinds of sounds. And I remember that corner was representative of a sonic change that was hitting the movement. Like, the movement came out of all of this a cappella singing on the streets. And as my mom was like, with her two kids, started to like go back to Spelman, like go back to move, the what she needed sonically changed, and what was available widened. All of a sudden, it's an instrumental record with jazz people having a response to what's been going on. Like Howlin' Wolf, like my little brother would stand in front of the speaker and just not be able to be still, and that's like almost this kind of sprouting mechanism of this huge musical flower that's getting created. And just by Jimi Hendrix, daring to play how he played and going everywhere and being better than everybody else was a powerful statement in itself. Right now, the access to sonic material is off the charts. You can take a voice out of anywhere and put it on anything and create, movies or videos or like little TikTok hits or whatever. It's completely different. And I'm really glad that music is still so central to what people need in order to activate their days. but it is a super. It's just explosive. Every individual person has access to the creation of music if they have an iPhone. Like it's
Yeah.
just you could just you can get there in GarageBand and make your own beats. Like you could do anything. So it's a really different time. Um, and I have no comment on if it's better or worse. I have no idea. It's just different.
It's just different.
That's the way it is. Technology is different. And I think the bigger issue is what's happening with technology as it creates these platforms. It's the joy and abundance by which people are creating on these platforms is one level. The abuse and consumption of intellectual property and ownership
Absolutely.
and an invasion of people's privacy and the constant asking for like 99 cents, 99 cents, give me 99 cents by these huge conglomerate corporations. Now that's a problem.
Right.
That's a problem. That's a serious problem. And each one of these places are big enough to crash government economies. So it's amazing to me. If you want to know what's really shocking to me, it's shocking to me that people's need to relate to each other, to be creative, has funded individual, mostly
Well,
white men, to
right.
positions of such great power that there are governments around the world that can't compete with them.
Yeah.
And if they go away, would be in trouble. That's a problem.
Problem. It's wow. You know, because I'm thinking about the fact that we go back historically, and especially in terms about Black music. Black music served a particular utility to the lives of Black folks, right? Whether folks were going to clubs in the Chitlin circuit or the juke joint or sitting up in church on Sunday morning, it was a vital part of our everyday lives, right? What happens when it transitions from this utility of Black life to this mass commodity?
Yeah.
Right. And suddenly there's a price tag placed on it. And even as it's accessible in some ways more so, it becomes almost less reflective of our humanity.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's up to us. Like, just because other people use this doesn't mean you don't use it for what you need. And I think the fury that we see a lot of people have around appropriation is because there's such an imbalance still in
Right.
society. So the second we started creating music, people from other cultures grabbed onto it. It's always been. It's and then they're like, we own your body, so now we own your music. We own your body. Now we own your recipes. We own your body. Now we know them quilts. We own them quilts you made. Like, we own everything that you created that was ingenious about you. And when we got free, we became entrepreneurs. Like, we were like, oh, I'm gonna create. I'm gonna create. I'm gonna create. And then we become collaborative partners with people
Wow.
who already have wealth and already can be
Right.
like, make them the phonograph, or make the this, or make radio, or make that. The fury is the imbalance. The fury is the ripoff. The
Mm.
fury is the acting like you didn't get it where you got it from. The fury is shutting people out. The fury is that you always own the freaking landscape by which something else could happen. So people, I don't think it's so much like who has access to it, and who's growing off of it, is that you just see the racism in it every time it exists, and that infuriates. I mean, it should infuriate everybody, but it definitely infuriates Black folk.
Yeah. Toshi, we're around the same age. So I imagine, you have memories of when you first heard hip hop on a regular basis, and
Yeah.
the way that it shifted over the years. And you mentioned every generation needs a new sonic culture, right, to articulate where they were going through, and clearly that was the case for hip hop, really from
Yes.
the early 1980s up until the 1990s. As you think about groups like Public Enemy or Brand Nubian or KRS-One, when Queen Latifah used to still rap, when you think about artists who came out of that moment, and where we think about hip hop being right now, for you, what is the legacy of hip hop, politically
Mm.
and musically, when as we've seen this transition to corporate culture, over the last 20 years?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I was on this panel with a lot of people, and this was a long time ago, and it was in DC, and I can't even remember what the conference was, but it was a big music thing, because I know DJ Spooky was there, and
Mhm.
then somebody from BMI was there, and ASCAP was there, and all of these like kind of record labels, like when we had back in the day, the record labels like they used to be, and it was all about technology. It was just like, what is technology, and how can technology help us, or whatever. And all of these people on the panel just started kind of having a fight with each other, because a lot of them were, especially BMI and ASCAP, like they kind of were like battling back and forth,
Mhm.
answering this
Mhm.
question, and all of this stuff. And it was too many of us on the panel anyway for like an hour. It's like, they passed the mic to my mom, and my mom is like, all I know about technology is every time something's invented, they take something away from you that you already had, and then they do something with it and sell it back to you and make
Back
you
to
pay for
you.
it.
Yeah.
And that was it. Boom. Like everybody was like, we're done. And I love her for that. She always, in one sentence, could kind of like, hey, this is how we go. This is what's going on. And that's the point, really. Like the voice, hip hop is, the iteration of that time of that preacher on the pulpit. Hip hop is the iteration of that time of the big band, caller who would get out and get everybody up, up,
Mhm.
up, and say, now we're gonna do this and now we're gonna do that. Hip hop comes out of the griot tradition, the storytelling tradition, and it and
Right.
it's and it's exactly in its time. And it's super successful. And guess what? Like, you know what? Everybody now wants to take it and do something with it. And it's like every other form of music. Every form of music has its entrance into the business, and then it has its turn into how to
Right.
continue to be a successful commodity. And that can be like hip hop came out, and then videos came out, and then hip hop like collaborations between, like, a rapper and a singer, and then it now becomes like there's a big verse, and then there's this, and then there's different kinds of flows that are happening, and different kinds of beats and music, and it's collaborated with every kind of music, folk music, electronica, like everything. And that's the way things flow. Like, you still gotta respect hip hop, and you still gotta respect those artists. And I think young ones, old ones, whoever, that can kind of like the way I can occasionally go back, not go back, but I can occasionally touch a blues song from the 1930s. I could tell you, like, look, this is migration blues from the 1930s. That's
Yeah.
not where I live, right? You don't ask
Right.
me to do a whole lot of songs like that, but I can give you an idea of something. And so I think you got to respect the people who can really like hang in the genre close to when it would create it. But like I say, every generation is welcome to everything, and people are always going to change what was before them. They just always going to do it, and it's
Yeah.
practically their job. And you can be mad at the music business, because the music business is the most limited view of what is actually happening.
Yeah. And let me ask you one more question. I grew up in New York also. Remember listening to Frankie Crocker on WBLS
Yes.
at a time when radio was so important to how we got introduced to music, how we got information. Radio doesn't function that same way anymore,
Yeah.
for the most part. But you've been able to maintain a career, being successful, making music that you wanted to make for the audiences that you wanted to hear it, without necessarily folks being able to turn to a hot 90 this or, a hot
Yeah.
105 that to hear your music. How important was it for you to carve out a career that didn't look like so many of the other careers, right? In terms of kind of,
Yeah.
being more of an independent artist, being able to record music that you felt, as opposed to whatever the production style was that was at the top of the charts at the time.
Yeah. I mean, you can't be anybody but yourself. And sometimes the big moments meet you as yourself. Sometimes you open your mouth and somebody, sees it and releases it, and it's like, oh my God, who's that? I think about like singers like Joan Armatrading,
Mm-hmm.
and I think about Tracy Chapman,
Mm-hmm.
um, Jeff Buckley out of New
Mm-hmm.
York.
Mm-hmm.
These are all like really great, singer-songwriters who like, just the thing happened, and what they did wasn't like really happening in, I'm just going to use these mainstream commercial music. They kind of were like a surprise to everybody, like, who's this? And then you
Right.
can think about Nina Simone even, and her voice, and how that happens, and it happens all the time now, because somebody can create something on YouTube
Mm-hmm.
and release it themselves, and then it just can explode. My path has just been to put like one foot in front of the other and get it done. And when I started, I really didn't see nobody who looked like me. It was really just a step by step, keep doing what I'm doing. And I was lucky because my mother told me to be a producer. She was like, learn to produce your own music, learn to produce your own concert, learn to, don't wait for somebody to discover you and say you're good enough, you know. And me having those skills meant I always could create a place for me to do music, and that's how the opera even has come to be. So I still think that's the way to go. Sometimes you meet the crossroads of superstardom, like where you're like a million people. Like when I look at people's YouTube views, and it's like they release the song and the next day 100 million people look at it. I'm just like, wow, I don't know anything about that. It's so amazing. Or some of my friends, they're famous and they're on Instagram, and they got like 1 million people follow them, or 10 million people follow them. And I'm like, I got 8,000. Yay. you know, I just feel so happy for whatever way that people have interacted with me over these years. And it's not easy to have a music career, period. So to have one your entire life is a blessing.
Absolutely. So you're gonna do a song for us now.
Yeah, I'm gonna do a song for y'all from the opera, Octavia E. Butler's Parable of the Sower. All our stuff got canceled, but we hope we will be back in the fall of 2021 if we can all pull together and take care of each other and wear our masks, social distance, and do all the things. And I just want to shout out for voting and completing your
Mm-hmm.
census, good people. The census will be over when this comes out, but I want to shout out everybody, get out there and vote. It'll be really important right now.
Thank you.
When I looked in the mirror, someone was falling down. When I looked in the mirror, someone was falling down. When I looked in the mirror, someone was falling down. And I slipped from view and my head hit the ground. Well, I fell on the dark earth, but I was out of touch. Yeah, say I fell on the dark earth, but I was out of touch. Now. Say I fell on the dark earth, but I was out of touch. Try to look towards the heaven, but it was a bit too much. Well, now can't see up above me, but I still know my name. Yeah, can't see up above me, but I still know my name. Well, now can't see up above me, but I still know my name. I can hear through the distance, and I still feel the same. Well, I know if you call me, I will be right on time. Say, I know if you call me, I will be right on time. Say, I know if you call me, I will be right on time. Don't know where I'm going, but I'll get there right on time.